Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in adult transgender care. Welcome to my channel. If you have not had yet chance to subscribe to this channel, what are you waiting for? Please do subscribe. This way, not only are you supporting me, but you're going to help so many other people find this content. And if you don't yet follow me on Instagram, a link is below. Please make sure you do follow me on Instagram. Lately, my Instagram has been a lot of fun, a lot of great tips and advice. And most of all, it is especially an ideal place for anybody who is trans femme identified to feel empowered, to feel like you can now own and define your own trans womanhood. And I talk a lot about trans womanhood on there lately. So make sure you do join me. Link is below. Would love to connect with all of you on there. For this video, let's talk about the losing game of bargaining and how the losing game of bargaining or negotiating with yourself is actually not really serving you or helping you in make any movement forward. And I'm going to share with you a very powerful, very action-oriented instrumental tip that you can implement that is going to help you break this ongoing habit of bargaining or negotiating with yourself. Bargaining, negotiating with yourself, the same thing really is incredibly common. It is incredibly common, especially for those of you who, as I always say, face one of the biggest challenges when it comes to deciding whether to step into gender transition. Again, in this case, gender transition is whatever that might be for you. For some, it might be all the way medical surgical, for some, only medical, for some, only social, whatever it is for you. When a lot of you find out that you are trans, or when a lot of you, and this is very common, when a lot of you have been struggling with gender dysphoria for a very long period of time, but you finally find yourself in a place of your life where enough is enough, or perhaps where you wish you could continue to go on, but you yourself personally no longer can move forward with gender dysphoria. This happens for a lot of you when you have tried to cope with it in so many ways throughout your lifetime. A recent wonderful client of mine used the terminology, um, it's like starvation of the mind, right? Like you're trying to starve the dysphoria so it doesn't get out of proportion. And sometimes it works and you're able to cycle through, and you maybe even able to cycle through a years or decades of coping with it. And then suddenly one day, it just all comes back with vengeance, and you are just feeling so helpless. None of your tactics, none of your coping works. In other words, you are pushed against the wall, or you hit a rock bottom, or you at a place where you have to start making some decisions that you were not comfortable nor were even considering in the past. And often these are decisions that somehow revolve around some elements of gender transition. So I see a lot of people who are in the stages of bargaining when their part of their headspace recognizes that something has got to change, but a big part of who they are is not ready for the change or unwilling for the change or meet that acknowledgement with tremendous amount of resistance. I also see a lot of individuals who, and this is, by the way, is the biggest question some people ask me, that what do you think is the biggest challenge of older trans adults? And I always say that the pattern, the number one biggest challenge that I see is that for older trans adults, by the time they perhaps decide or start thinking about doing something about their gender dysphoria, you have accumulated, and I've spoken about this on my channel a lot, you have accumulated and you have created and built your own ecosystem. And your ecosystem is your career, your family, some of you have children, some of you have relationships. That's your ecosystem. And that ecosystem revolves around masculine male identity. And you realize that for you, in order to start dealing and addressing gender dysphoria, may potentially lead to destabilizing the ecosystem. The environment that you have created is going to change, and there are going to be some elements of this environment that you cannot bring with you forward. They're going to have to be left behind. Part of the environment are going to be people, loved ones. That is reality for many. And I know that so many of you have rich and diverse and complex ecosystems. I know this because I worked with people that have been married for 20, 30 years, have kids. I worked with people who are public figures, who are established in their community, and the whole public, if you will, is the whole public establishment revolves around masculine identity. And so if you have very enriched ecosystem that is very, very entrenched in male identity, bargaining and negotiating is going to not only be essential to you, but it's going to be a natural part of the process. We always bargain and negotiate with ourselves when we have something to lose and when we can stand something to gain, right? Think about the moments in your life when you bargain, when you negotiate, right? I mean, where does the terminology even come from? You want to buy a car, you're negotiating, right? You want to pay less and you want to get more features. Or whatever it is, in whichever way you tend to bargain or you tend to negotiate, right? And we negotiate and bargain within ourselves, within our lifestyle, right? With our vices. Um, if I'm trying to minimize my drinking, but I really want to have a glass of wine today, maybe I don't know, maybe I'll go for a walk or I go for a run. So I have some part of today is going to be healthy, and then part of my evening is going to be a little bit unhealthy. We negotiate and bargain with ourselves constantly. And for those, a lot of you with gender dysphoria, that is going in the forefront of your mind. When you come to a standstill of realization that something needs to change. And a lot of you have already come to that standstill when we had COVID. Sorry, the light is changing. In a COVID, when COVID forced so many of you to introspect and to go deep inwards because we were so insulated from the world. And if the COVID didn't do that for you, world events can make that for you. Even right now, the way the politics are hindering and trying to stampen transgender rights, this politics in of itself can actually push a person to start introspecting more about who they are. So if you're finding yourself right now at a standstill, you most likely are negotiating and bargaining with yourself. And negotiating and bargaining with yourself in regards to taking future steps may look something like this. And oftentimes, a lot of times, it is negotiating around parameters of stalling moving forward. So stalling is going to look like this. I'm just going to give myself one more month, just one more month. And if I can tolerate dysphoria, then maybe I can do another month. That's negotiating, installing it moving forward, right? You may be bargaining with yourself and you may be telling yourself, right now I'm experiencing these drastic feelings of dysphoria because of the politics. But if politics are going to change in a couple of years, my dysphoria is going to go away. So I might as well just wait. You may be negotiating yourself in terms of your family, right? Maybe I can just do a little bit in secrecy, and that way quiet dysphoria, and nobody has to know. Some of you may be already negotiating while stepping in the medical transition. Maybe I'll just go on a low dose of hormones, but I will never have to tell my partner, or I will never have, nobody has to know. All of these tactics are back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. All of this negotiating and bargaining that never ends up reaching a conclusion, never coming to some kind of an agreement, is only leading you astray. And it's only wasting your precious, precious time. Why? Because you negotiating with yourself. You are your own salesperson and your own customer. Very, very different. When I go to a car dealership and I want to buy a car, I'm not negotiating with myself. Do you see what I'm trying to say? I'm negotiating with a salesperson that has limits or has their own parameters beyond which they cannot go. And just knowing that they have parameters, we cannot decrease the car price by $5,000. That's definitely not going to happen. Changes my position and orientation, how I'm going to then negotiate forward. All of you are negotiating with yourself. And because you are your own salesperson and a customer inside of your headspace, you end up just making and running circles around yourself. Because neither one of the side of you is going to put parameters into place. And so the problem with negotiating and bargaining is that it is very seductive. And the reason why it is very seductive is that because it's making a lot of you feel like you are actively trying to solve your gender dysphoria problem. Because you're telling yourself, see, I'm trying to think how I'm going to solve it. I'm trying to figure out a way forward. But instead, what you're doing is what I call hoarding anxiety. Because going back and forth will increase your anxiety. And now you're starting to hoard it. You're starting to accumulate it because nothing gets resolved. It's almost like, you know, you know you need to jump in the pool. But all you're doing is that you're tipping your toe in, you're withdrawing, you're tipping your toe in, you're withdrawing. Maybe the next time you go a little bit deeper, but you're still not all the way in the pool. You keep doing it back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it is exhausting. It is exhausting. And again, the damnedest thing about this is that it actually does makes a lot of you believe that you're actively doing something. That's the trap of bargaining with ourselves. The trap is that by thinking we are doing something, it keeps us at it. Right? It's like, maybe not a perfect analogy, but it's similar to telling yourself that if only you do 10,000 steps a day, you're going to lose the weight you want to lose. Not acknowledging that what 80 or 90% of the weight loss happens in the kitchen. It's really mostly what you eat. Exercise helps, but if you eat in a calorie deficit, you already will be ahead of your stuff. But so you just keep working and working those damn steps every day, but you don't change your eating habits, so nothing really changes, right? So you have to be very careful. If you catch yourself that you've been at bargaining and negotiating with yourself for years, and so many of you have been doing it for decades, and you are, just ask yourself, are you in any better place? Are you any happier? Are you any more dysphoria free? Is your dysphoria gone? Has it disappeared? Because chances are you're not happier, you're not dysphoria free, and your dysphoria has not disappeared. Now, remember how I said in the beginning of the video, I have recommendation how to break the cycle of negotiating and bargaining with yourself. And here's what works with so many of my clients. One of the reasons why it's so difficult for a lot of you to step forward beyond negotiating point is because you're afraid. And you are afraid of whatever it is you believe is going to happen if you step forward. A lot of your fears are not realistic. A lot of your fears, especially if you're prone to anxiety, are going to be catastrophized out of proportion. A lot of your fears are going to be projections of other people around you. A lot of your fears are going to be things you've seen there on the internet that may not even be applicable to your case. But fear is going to be one of the main and biggest reasons why you have a hard time stepping forward. Okay? And you're going to be afraid because even if you're thinking, I'm just going to take one small step, your ego thinks, this is point of no return. I don't even know where we get this idea. There's always point of return. Okay? This is transition. I always tell this to my clients. Transition, gender transition, is not like a movie, Miss Congeniality. Have you seen that movie? If you haven't, let me tell you, there's a part in there where Sandra Bullock, the main character, police officer, goes to play undercover. And she's this kind of like disheveled police officer that doesn't really care about her beauty or looks or, you know, looking like sexy, beautiful woman. And she needs to play undercover. She needs to play a role of one. So she goes into this warehouse with all this magical hairstylists and beauty and waxing people and nail people, you name it. And within a couple of hours, she comes out, this hot babe. Transition is not like that. Nobody's going in the warehouse, and there's not going to be, thousands of magicians working on you. We tend to get an idea that it's kind of fast like that. Part of it is, people who do have access to a lot of resources. When we saw Caitlyn Jenner come out on I think it was Vanity Fair magazine, all looking gracefully done in a beautiful, I think it was like this cream beige, beautiful bodysuit corset. It felt like it happened overnight. I'm sure it did not happen for her overnight. I'm sure she was on hormones for some time. But surgeries like this, yeah, if you have money and resources, things can happen faster, but still not like this movie, Miss Congeniality, where you're just gonna start on maybe low dose hormones and suddenly it's like no point of return. That's it. You're going to wake up um, absolutely transformed. Things don't work like that. But somehow our ego presumes, and somehow our ego has that idea that things are going to happen fast or there's going to be a point of no return. And that's just not reality of it. And because you are afraid of that, it's that much harder to take a step forward. So here's my tip. Instead of telling yourself, I'm going to take the small step of gender transition, but I'm going to start moving forward, which then triggers in your headspace domino effect of, but if you're taking the step, that means you have to take this and you have to take that, and then you're going to have to take that, and that's scary. Why don't you tell yourself this? I'm going to give myself only 3 months. That's it, only 3 months. I'm going to give myself 3 months of changing something in regards to my stalemate position. It could be I'm going to sign up with a therapist and I'm just going to talk in privacy and confidentiality about my struggle for 3 months and just see what's going to happen. I guarantee it's going to break your stalemate. I guarantee after 3 months, there's going to be some other effect forward. Or you can say, I've been wanting to start talking to my partner about this. What if just for 3 months I start talking about it to my partner? Why does this work? This works because you're giving your ego, you're giving your brain that part of you that is terrified, a limited time space. You're putting brakes on it. You're saying only 3 months. Now your ego can say, oh, it can breathe. It can say, okay, all right. Not definitive. Not for the rest of your life. 3 months is very quick, short period of time. Trust me, it's going to fly so fast. I mean, look at 2025, we're already in April. And that way, you also telling your ego, if in 3 months of doing little tiny things, whatever it is you choose that you're comfortable with, if I still don't feel better or see benefits of it, or haven't made decision of doing something else afterwards, I'll scale back. So now by telling that to your ego, you're giving yourself almost like this flexibility where it's not so indefinite. It has a beginning and an end. Anytime our mind gets beginning and an end, it loves it. It loves it. Analogy again, weight loss, right? You wanna try, I don't know, high protein diet. You don't know if it's gonna work. Maybe you're afraid trying it because you're thinking if I do it, I'm gonna have to give up my carbs for a lifetime. But if you tell yourself, I'm gonna just do this for 3 months, 3 months, 3 months, just to see how I respond. If I don't respond, not for me. If I don't see any benefits, not for me. And that makes you easier to step forward. The same works here. In order to break the stalemate between negotiating and bargaining and going back and forth, you need to give yourself established parameters. You need to create bookends that hold the space together. That's how you diminish internal resistance, because that resistance now understands that things you're going to do are going to exist for a very short duration, and it's not so scary anymore. And it's sure not as scary for your ego as well. If you're finding yourself right now that you are in the midst of this negotiating and back and forth, first thing, notice how long you've been doing it. Ask yourself, how long has this been going on? A year, 2, 5, 10? Then ask yourself, am I making any progress, or am I just hoarding anxiety at this point? And in doing so, am I wasting my precious time? And if the answer is yes, just try for the next 3 months something different in regards to your gender, something that moves you forward. Again, whatever it is that you're comfortable with, but something. Break the cycle of status quo. Nothing will ever change unless you change. Nothing will ever change unless you change. Be able to invite change in even for just a short period of time. Comment below, let me know, how long have you been negotiating with yourself? Has anything changed? Has anything changed? Have you made any progress? How much time have you wasted? And what are you willing to do to move forward? Comment below. I love hearing all of your comments. Give this video a thumbs up. I would very much appreciate it. And I will see you all next time. Goodbye.